Well, our speaker today is a wonderful presenter who learned much of what she knows about business from growing up as the youngest of 10 children in Hawaii. Differentiating herself in the shadow of 9 siblings required her to develop and use the sales and negotiating skills that she is famous for today. Mae McCarthy has become the quintessential serial entrepreneur starting at the age of 6, where she got her first lesson in food inventory shrinkage as her brothers literally ate her profits. Since 1982, Mae has used metaphysical spiritual practices to grow 7 successful businesses in a variety of industries, with the largest having more than $100 million in annual revenues. Yeah, that's all right. It's a bye week. We can stop and applaud. It's okay. Yeah. She is a guest university lecturer, angel investor, and philanthropist. Mae is a member of the Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle and has been a grateful student of Ernest Holmes, Charles Fillmore, Emma Curtis Hopkins, Florence Scovel Shinn, and other New Thought teachers. And Mae now travels the world on purpose to elevate prosperity and freedom for all, and shares spiritual success principles through her best-selling book, The Path to Wealth, and her latest book, The Gratitude Formula. Now, Mae is here today to emphasize the importance of connecting with Spirit as your source of intelligence and abundance to achieve greater levels of success, happiness, and freedom. So please join me in welcoming to our stage and to our community, Mae McCarthy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, good morning. So happy I got this outfit in Kansas City when I came here to speak during a different trip, a different center, a different Unity Center. And I'm just so happy to wear it again. Before we get started, could I just see with a show of hands, how many of you, and for you at home as well, how many of you would like to have greater health with a pain-free body that easily moves through life? Okay. Would anybody like to have harmonious relationships with family, friends, coworkers, our community? Okay, good, good. Would anybody like to have more money and the freedom to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it? Yeah? Great, I'm in the right place. So happy. Back in 1981, my mother, who was a devout Catholic, who had converted from Seventh-day Adventist, gave me my first metaphysical book. Somehow she knew that her 10th child was a little different. And the book was called The Game of Life and How to Play It, published in 1925 by a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn. Has anybody read that? Okay, if you haven't, you should go into your bookstore and get it, all right? I took that book away to college with me, and I thought I had a secret formula. Oh my gosh. I was able to use the principles in that book, my words, thoughts, and emotions, to achieve pretty much anything I wanted. I was able to grow a business with 250 employees while going to school full-time and graduating in 3 years with honors. This stuff works. This stuff works. These principles work. I thought I had a secret formula, but I still went to church with my mother, who was a devout Catholic, meanwhile, while I was doing all of this. Fast forward, my sister is a reverend in the Centers for Spiritual Living, and so I pretty much follow her wherever she goes, as a dutiful young sister should. And we ended up at Center for Spiritual Living, and I was shocked. We had gone to Unity Church and Center for Spiritual Living, and I was just shocked that other people were using these principles to succeed in life. I felt like I was home in both places. And as I was there, the spiritual leadership asked me a question. They said, Mae, what are you doing to be so successful? I thought it was a trick question. I said, well, I'm doing what you're teaching here. Isn't that right? And they said, no, let us explain. We don't have tithers as big as you are very often. Come along. And side note, tithing is the greatest spiritual prosperity tool there is ever, okay? And that's a whole nother talk. But I'm a tither. And they recognized this, and they asked me, what are you doing to be so successful? And so I explained to them I was using the same principles that they're teaching and that Florence Shinn and Emma Curtis Hopkins and Charles Fillmore and Ernest Holmes teach. And they said, yeah, but specifically, what are you doing? I said, oh, you want to know what my daily practice is? Yeah. So I explained to them what my daily practice is. And in a nutshell, I want you to know that I am a self-proclaimed efficiency expert. That just means I hate to waste time. I really do. I have this knack of taking really complicated ideas and systems and turning them into easy to understand and implement processes. I have taught hundreds of employees that have worked for my companies over the years how to do their jobs efficiently. And so I explained to them what my daily practice is that's very efficient. It takes like 25 to 30 minutes every morning. And they asked if I would teach a workshop. So I did. And then I taught another and another, and after about the 500th person had gone through the workshops with good success, I was asked to write a book. Now, I never thought having a book would ever be on my resume. That was just something I didn't plan on. But they asked me to write a book because in my workshops, like the one today, I give everybody a 28-page workbook, and we get to do hands-on and learn these principles. Learn how to put it into practice so that tomorrow morning you're absolutely equipped to get started. But I also tell a lot of application stories because I learn through stories. And I figure other people do too. So I tell all these stories and they're not included in the workbook. So I wrote a book called The Path to Wealth, which looks like this. And it was really interesting. When it came out, it became a bestseller on Amazon in personal finance. It's not a personal finance book. It's a spiritual book. It's a spiritual principle book. But somehow Spirit decided that it wanted to use this book to get outside of our community to the folks that are in business and help them implement these same principles into their lives. So I was happy to do that. I'm confident that the principles that I've learned in New Thought centers like this one are the reason I've been so successful in business and life. But in addition to great business success, these principles also saved my life. In 1994, I ended up having this strong thought of my sister's face in my mind's eye. Now, this talk that I'm going to go over with you today has a specific title. It's called Partnering with Your Chief Spiritual Officer for Success and Freedom. You're probably wondering, what in the world is a chief spiritual officer, right? Well, for me, it's that characteristic of spirit that is the ultimate advisor. And it guides you towards whatever it is that you put your words, thoughts, and emotions on. And it also wants to keep you safe. Now, in my company, I decided to take this chief spiritual officer principle, this ultimate advisor, and I put it on the top of my organizational chart so that I, as the CEO, reported to it. Can you imagine what my employees said? Who's the CSO? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Do we ever get to meet them? And my response was that the CSO is a guiding principle. And anytime that you're in any situation at all, where you have a challenge, a problem, an opportunity, maybe you're working on software and you have a bug, because I had a lot of software companies. Anytime you're in that situation, what I want you to do is start to be grateful for the solution already being manifest. That your customer is already happy that your problem is already solved, that your software is already working flawlessly. Start being grateful for that and see what happens. See if you don't get some innovative and creative ideas, some gut instincts, some ideas to go somewhere, do something, contact someone. And then let me know about it. Well, as you would expect, My employees contacted me a ton of times. They texted me, they called me, they left me emails and said, the CSO did this, the CSO gave me this idea. I got this innovative and creative way to solve this problem. The CSO was a reason for us to be a miracle-making company while competing with 3 Fortune 20 companies. We became market share leader in our category, very, very simply because the CSO's guiding principle. And as I mentioned earlier, in 1994, I got this idea of my sister's face in my mind's eye, and I practiced this a while. And what that meant was that I should contact her. I happened to be finishing up with my business meeting, and I was very close to her office. So I just stopped by. She was so happy to see me. She had a computer problem that I could fix for free. And as I'm sitting there at her desk working on her computer, she notices this little tiny dot on the outside of my right leg. And she asked me what it was. Well, you heard in the introduction that I was raised in Hawaii. And I'm fair. I have a lot of freckles. And that's exactly what I told her it was. I mean, I've had that spot forever. It's always been the same size, nothing to worry about. And I told her that. And she said that she didn't feel that it was a freckle, and asked if I would go see her dermatologist to have it looked at. Well, my rational mind is saying, May, you're too busy, you've got lots of appointments, you're too packed, this is nothing to worry about, and I was just about to dismiss her fear when my gut hurt. Anybody ever have their gut hurt? Yeah? Again, I've been practicing this a while, and I knew that was the way that Spirit was trying to get my attention. So I just made the appointment and went to the doctor. The doctor said, May, it's too small. It can't possibly be anything. Honey, don't worry. Just go ahead and go home. You'll be fine. And as I was about to heed that doctor's advice, my gut hurt again. And now I had to have a choice. I had a choice to make. Do I believe the doctor? Or do I believe God? I chose God. So I told the doctor, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but please go ahead and cut that off and have it diagnosed. I mean, he barely got 1 stitch in. That's how small it was. I came back a week later to a diagnosis of cancer, malignant melanoma, Clark's level 3. The CSO saved my life. Now, all of us know about the power of using these spiritual principles and faith for healing, right? Either for yourself or for someone you know that you can use your words, thoughts, and emotions to declare perfect health, and the energy in the universe, this collective consciousness, will work on the problem, right? You know those stories. I mean, the Fillmore stories. I can know for you that you are whole, healthy, and complete, and that every cell and function of your body is operating in the perfection of God's designs. I know that truth. You all can know that with me, right? But why don't we use that same power for our finances, our relationships, our health, in other areas of our life? Our recreation, the use of our skills and talents in fulfilling and satisfying ways. We can. There are lots of people that use this spiritual intuition to succeed in life. You all probably know the name Bill Gates, right? Okay. Well, Bill Gates said often you have to rely on intuition. And Steve Jobs from Apple said you actually have to have courage to follow your heart and intuition. Like having the courage to go up against a doctor when my father was a surgeon and he told all of his kids that doctors are always right. And Oprah Winfrey, clearly one of the most influential women of our time, she said that she has listened to that still small voice of intuition her whole life. And the only times that she's made mistakes, when she didn't listen. So if Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, all say that relying on this spiritual intuition is a tool for success, why do you think that we're not all doing it? Well, I think it's because many of us aren't taught. And thank God there are centers like this one, that there's this wonderful Unity Village Chapel that teaches these principles. But for most people, when you have a problem about anything, what do? You Google it, right? Right. You Google it and you gather all this information. You talk to your friends and family about it. You find subject matter experts' opinions about it. You think about every possible step that you could take in regards to that issue, right? No, you go one step further and you think about every possible outcome that could come from every possible step, right? And if you don't like any of the outcomes, what do? Nothing, right? You do nothing. Well, you're not allowed to do nothing anymore. See, Albert Einstein actually described this human condition many, many years ago. He said that we all have this intuitive mind that's a sacred gift. And we have this rational mind that's a faithful servant. It will do whatever we tell it to do. But somehow in our society, we've chosen to honor this rational mind. And we've forgotten the gift. So I'm here today to help you to remember the gift that you have. Each and every one of us has this gift. And being the self-proclaimed efficiency expert that I am, I've even given you a cheat sheet. And you all should have gotten this handout when you came in. I'm going to go over 3 points with you today to help you to remember. The first point is to recognize that your intuition has a source, and it wants to help you achieve your goals and to keep you safe. But it stands to reason that you actually have to have some goals, right? And they need to be worded in such a way to not only enable intuition to show up, but maybe we could even get our subconscious on board to help us as well. And let me illustrate this. How many of you have ever said, let me rephrase that. How many of you know someone who has said, I want to lose 10 pounds? Right? Or I want to get out of debt. Well, think about that goal for a minute. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to get out of debt. I want. The goal is to be wanting. Haven't you already achieved that? Aren't you already wanting? Why do you need your subconscious and spirit's help with that? So in this practice, you shift your words to describe what it is that you want as though it's already complete with gratitude. Gratitude magnetizes you to realizing demonstrations. So you might say, I'm so grateful that I'm physically fit, trim, toned, energetic, in a pain-free body that easily moves through life. And I'm eternally youthful and increasingly more beautiful. That's my goal. Every day, writing that down. So whatever your goal is, describe it as though it's already done with gratitude and revisit that every day. The second point is that you can partner with this source of intuition. You can commit to a partnership. And in this partnership, as in every other partnership that you have, there are clear roles and responsibilities that you both will follow. You've got your job, and God's got God's job. Your job is to figure out what it is that you want and describe it as though it's complete with gratitude. God's job, the CSO's job, is to create the path for you to get there and to give you one step at a time. You either take the step, like contacting my sister after I saw her face in my mind's eye, or if you don't want to take the step, if you're worried, if you're filled with doubt, if you're concerned, it doesn't make sense, and you just can't muster up the courage, as Steve Jobs said, to take an action, then simply ask for another lead. Let's all practice that. I want you to look straight out, tilt your head slightly up, and say, Spirit, I need another lead. I want so badly to make it more complicated than that, because I think if I make it more complicated, you might do it. But really, it's that simple. You're going to get strong thoughts, gut instincts. People are going to give you information. You're going to get all of these intuitive directions that are in relation to your goal that guide you to take a step. You either take the step or ask for another lead. Now, in this partnership, I think it's really important that you describe the characteristic of spirit by name. And I'm not saying that there is separation. We are all part of one. We know that. But don't we have different names for different characteristics of spirit? Don't we call it truth, divine intelligence, power? So think of a name that describes the ultimate advisor characteristic. And there's a space for you to write that down if you feel so inspired to. But this will help your subconscious to also be of help to you. When you're having your morning meetings, describing your goals with gratitude is complete, and using that name or title for the characteristic of spirit that's the ultimate advisor, your subconscious will go, okay, all right, I'm going to watch out for those pieces of information that come from that partner and make sure to illuminate those for you. My third and final point today. Well, actually, hold on. Before I do that, I just remembered that many of you might want to know what happens when your subconscious or rational mind starts to try and interfere and talk you out of it. Ever have that happen? Yeah? Yeah. Well, one of my goals that I was writing about every day in my last company, I do a lot of startup companies, which means I wear a lot of hats. You know, I'm a CEO, I'm an accountant, I'm a janitor, I'm a salesperson. And as we were growing this last company, I was writing down every day in my meeting with my CSO that I was so grateful that we had a minimum or more of $400,000 in new revenue by a particular time so that we could grow our business. We could serve our customers in more valuable ways. We could hire additional team members and give them a really great job where they feel valued and appreciated. And we could be able to serve more customers across the nation. So I found myself in Cleveland, where I have a customer called the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, and I have been there before. So I land at the airport, go get my rental car, get my bags, fly to the hotel, and drop everything off. Then I get back in my car, and I go to the closest grocery store that's just 5 minutes away. And I pick up protein shakes and water and things that I need for my stay. As I'm in the car, ready to go to the grocery store, I get this strong thought of a grocery store that's 15 minutes away. That didn't make any sense, right? And my rational mind decided to jump on board and explain why that was not a good idea. May, honey, it's 9 o'clock at night here in Cleveland. You should not be driving across town in Cleveland at 9 o'clock at night, when a perfectly good grocery store is just 5 minutes away. You know, your appointment, young lady, is at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and that's 5 o'clock in the morning, Seattle time. You should not waste time. Just go get what you need at the close grocery store and come back and get a good night's sleep. How many of you can identify with that? Right. So in this practice, if that happens, you figuratively stomp your foot and say, Spirit, I need another lead. That will invite and allow the intuitive mind to be able to say something, and mine did. Well, May, it's true. It's 9 o'clock at night here, but it's only 6 o'clock in the evening in Seattle. It's too early for you to go to sleep anyway. And who knows, maybe everything you want will be on sale. Just make the drive. So I did. As I'm walking into the grocery store, I recognized a man walking out. I met him 6 months before at a trade show. He represented a very large customer. And he had not been returning any of my phone calls or emails for an appointment. And here we are, face to face. Well, we strike up this conversation, and before the end, he says, look, while you're in town, why don't you come make a presentation to our group? Well, that presentation led to another, and eventually a contract worth more than the $400,000 that I had been grateful for in my CSO meeting. Now, I want to ask you all a really honest question. In school, did they teach you what they taught me, which is to create a goal and then figure out every single little step that it takes to get to that goal? Did you all learn that? Yeah. Okay, now, in all honesty, how many of you would say, first step, drive across town to a grocery store in Cleveland? This is what I love about stories in the Bible and other wonderful texts. This is like Red Seas parting, food falling from heaven, water coming out of rocks, because this is the way we're supposed to live. It's not supposed to always make rational sense. But we know that the universe will guide us to whatever we're putting our words, thoughts, and emotions on, right? We believe that. And those are just a couple of stories that demonstrate that. My final point is that you have to commit in this partnership to meet every day. You have to build a relationship. This partnership is like a relationship with anyone else that you have. It takes time to build up that level of trust, right? How many of you have ever heard the phone ring and you knew who it was? Yeah. You have a relationship with that person, right? Another demonstration of how and proof of how we're all connected. Well, the same thing is going to happen as you commit to this practice every single day, as you commit to using the 7 steps that are outlined in my book, which we're going to practice in the workshop this afternoon if you can join us. I don't have time to go over all the 7 steps, but the key is meeting every single day to build up that level of trust, to be able to understand how Spirit communicates with you to give you directions, strong thoughts, gut instincts, messages through other people, sometimes even signs. And we're going to go over all of that this afternoon. So in closing, what I'd love for us to do is to read what Ernest Holmes had to say about the value of spiritual partnership. And we've got it up on the screen, but it's also here on your sheet. And I'd love for us to be able to read that together. I know that I am in partnership with the infinite. I identify myself with this partnership, knowing that it always leads to success. I accept that the action of infinite intelligence is back of everything. It is always manifesting itself, and it now does so through the thought pattern of success I am establishing for myself. Conditions and situations about me now start to correspond to my new ideas about them. The invisible presence and power indwelling and surrounding me, which is forever making manifest my thought, now creates for me the success with which I have identified my thought. May you be blessed. May you be prospered. May you be healthy and happy. And as Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was a teacher of the Fillmores and Ernest Holmes, said, there's a good for you, and you ought to have it. And I would add that you should have it now. Thank you so very much for having me today. Thank you.